Hi grade 8, now that you have done all the notes on Power of 0 and the examples and you've tried exercise 9, I'm going to quickly mark it. I'm going to go through the easy ones quite quickly and then save time for the more difficult ones. Okay, if I look at A, x to the power of 0 is 1. The 3 had nothing to do with it, so it's 3 times 1, which is 3. If I look at B, the negative 2 wasn't attached to the 0, but the entire bracket was. So the entire bracket disappears, and I get negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. If I look at C, the 7 and the negative 2 are not to the power of 0, but the x is, and so I get negative 14. On to D, 3 to the power of 0 is 1. 2 is not related to the power of 0, only the 5 is, so I get 1 plus 2, which is 3. In question E, the top has nothing to do with an exponent of 0, so I'm going to ignore it, but the entire bottom is to the power of 0, so that's 1. So anything divided by 1 just stays the same, and so I'm just left with the top. Right, back up to the top for F. Question F, I'm going to leave everything alone for now, just so that I can deal with the exponent of 0. So anything to the power of 0 is 1, so here the x disappeared with its exponent, and now I can just simplify. So signs, numbers, variables. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. 2 goes into itself once and goes into 6 3 times. You can use your calculator. If I have 1 y at the top and 4 at the bottom, I land up with 3 y's at the bottom and x to the power of 5 at the top. Right, on to the next one. There's lots of powers of 0. First of all, that entire bracket is to the power of 0, so that disappears to 1. A, B to the power of 4. I prefer to first deal with all my zeros. Now, this is quite tricky. Negative 2 to the power of 0. Is this negative in the bracket? And the answer is no. So it's negative and only the 2's to the power of 0. So it's actually negative 1 a squared b cubed. So just be a little bit careful there, because lots of people will think that the negative is attached to the 2. Now, it technically is negative 1 times 2 to the power of 0, simply because that negative is not in a bracket with the 2. Now I'm going to do my distribution at the top. So this is 1 a to the power of 4 b to the power of 4. Distributed it. Note, I don't actually need that 1 there. Negative 1, again, I don't need that 1. And now I can do signs, numbers, variables. So now my signs, a positive divided by negative is a negative. 1 divided by 1 is 1, but I'm not going to bother writing it anymore. If I have 4 a's at the top and 2 at the bottom, I land up with 2 at the top. And 4 b's at the top and 3 b's at the bottom gives me 1 at the top. So this was the difficult part about that question, understanding that that negative is not included with the 2 to the power of 0. Okay, H is quite nice because it looks so mean and horrible, then you might be tempted to simplify in the bracket, and there's lots of things going on. I don't really care what's happening in the bracket. That entire thing, whatever it is raised to the power of 0, which means it entirely disappears to 1. Now this negative was not in the bracket, so it's still there. So I actually get negative 1. So just pause before you launch at a question and simplify in the bracket first. Have a look. That whole thing was to the power of 0. So even though it can simplify, it's not going to matter in the end. Okay, this is quite interesting. So negative 20. A to the power of 0 would be 1. B. Now this is an entire bracket to the power of 0, so that whole bracket disappears. And that whole thing is still being cubed. Now, can I do any simplifying here? Well, negative 20 times 1 is just negative 20. This is negative 20b. And I'm going to stop writing that 1 because I really don't need it cubed. And now you might want to whip out a calculator, because who knows what negative 20 cubed is. But I'm going to cube the negative 20, and I might want to use my calculator. I'm going to cube the b, and I'm going to cube the a. Now, if I go next door, so I've run out of space. You can use your calculator, so I get negative 8,000 b cubed over a cubed. So don't be afraid to use a calculator if they're big numbers like that. Right, on to my last one. Again, here's this negative which is not attached to the power of 0. So x to the power of 0 is 1, so it's negative 1 y to the power of 4z over x y to the power of 7, and then z to the power of 0 is 1. Now I'd still want to do some simplifying there, because if there's 4 y's at the top and 7 at the bottom, you're going to land up with 3 y's at the bottom. There's nothing to cancel with my z and nothing to cancel with my x. And notice I've stopped writing that one because I really don't need it. So that's squared. And now just be very careful. You're squaring everything. So it's negative 1 is being squared, z is being squared, x is being squared, and y cubed is being squared. And when you raise a power to another power, you multiply. Now negative 1 squared is actually 1. So I don't even need to write it, but the negative actually lands up disappearing. Right, and that's the end of that exercise. So hopefully that was a good recap of to the power of 0, but also some other laws in there as well.